My name is Haley O'Grady, and I am a water quality engineer for the County Stormwater Program. Today I will be discussing the new Regional Municipal Stormwater Permit with a focus on the construction program. This presentation is a part of the 2022 County of Ventura Annual Training Program. I am going to start with a brief overview of the 2021 Regional Municipal Stormwater, or MS4, permit. Before I go over the changes to the construction program in the 2021 Regional MS4 permit, I am going to give an overview of construction stormwater pollution and why it is regulated. Then we will go over the requirements of the 2021 MS4 permit as compared to the 2010 MS4 permit. Lastly, I will provide some examples of the minimum construction BMPs identified in the 2021 permit. In July 2021, the Los Angeles Regional Water Quality Control Board adopted a new regional MS4 permit that applies to all 99 permittees within the Los Angeles and Ventura counties. In the past, Ventura County has been issued a separate MS4 permit, so this is the first regional permit for Los Angeles and Ventura counties. The 2021 MS4 permit became effective on September 11th, 2021. The 2021 MS4 permit provides two compliance pathway options. The traditional option to implement minimum control measures and comply with effluent limits is similar to the compliance strategy of past Ventura County MS4 permits. The Watershed Management Program option is a strategy that allows permittees to address water quality on a watershed scale. All permittees from Ventura County, including the County of Ventura, have opted to pursue the Watershed Management Program option and have submitted notices of intent to the Regional Board that they intend to develop watershed management programs. Next, Ventura County permittees must develop watershed management programs and submit them to the Regional Board for approval by September 11th, 2023. This timeline is important because while watershed management programs are developed, permittees will continue to implement minimum control measures from the 2010 MS4 permit. Because Ventura County permittees need time to develop watershed management programs, the 2021 MS4 permit allows us to continue implementing the minimum control measures of our 2010 MS4 permit while the plans are developed. Minimum control measures include permit requirements for our programs like construction, planning and land development, illicit discharges, and others. This timeline means that the construction program changes that we will cover later in this training will not become effective until the watershed management programs have been approved by the LA Regional Board. Similarly, other minimum control measure changes like those for public agency and planning and land development requirements will not become effective until the watershed management programs have been approved. Regional Board approval is expected sometime in late 2023 or early 2024. That was a brief summary of the 2021 MS4 permit. Before I go over the details of the construction program, I will provide a refresher on why construction is regulated for stormwater. Construction activities are considered high risk for stormwater pollution because there are pollutant sources that are unique to construction, particularly exposed soil. Unprotected, loosened soil can erode up to 100 times faster than natural surfaces that are compacted and or vegetated. Stormwater runoff can then convey sediment and other pollutants to surface waters. Sediment is a pollutant itself, but it can also act as a vessel to transport other pollutants, like those listed here. It's also important to keep in mind that in some cases, pollutants may not originate from the construction activity, but are existing to the site and are exposed by construction. An example of this would be our extensive agricultural history in Ventura County. Many local developments take place on sites that once had agricultural land uses, which may have legacy pollutants that could be exposed during construction. To go over some of the impacts of construction pollution, the first that typically comes to mind is environmental pollution. For example, trash is a very common pollutant from construction sites, which, once in our surface waters, can be consumed by birds and fish and may lead to their death. Whenever we have surface water quality impacts, it also results in recreational restrictions. Restricted beneficial uses may limit options for swimming because water contact recreation is not supported by the receiving water quality. Lastly, there are also safety concerns associated with construction pollution. The second photo shown here illustrates an example of how poor construction tracking controls can cause unsafe driving conditions at a site access point. This image is particularly helpful to understand why erosion is such a concern for construction sites. The distinction with construction is that construction sites typically have loose soils with little to no vegetative cover. Vegetative cover protects against raindrop impact by providing leaf cover and root stabilization. Raindrop impacts dislodge soil particles and suspend them in runoff. So when construction sites remove that protective vegetative cover, rainfall is better able to dislodge soil particles. Once suspended in runoff, soil particles are transported until runoff slows or pools and they are deposited somewhere new. Erosion is dependent on site-specific soil characteristics, so each construction site will be different. These images illustrate some of the common types of erosion typically encountered on construction sites. Sheet erosion is characterized by wide, flat, shallow patches of soil loss. Rill erosion is when runoff starts to form channels or rivulets in the soil surface. And gully erosion is when large, open ditches have formed. Next, we'll take a look at a comparison of the new and existing MS4 permit requirements for construction. Note that the information on the next set of slides is color-coded to further clarify which requirements are from the 2010 permit and which are from the 2021 permit. New 2021 permit requirements are in blue, and existing 2010 permit requirements are in green. As a reminder, the updated requirements of the 2021 MS4 permit that are discussed in this section are not expected to become effective until late 2023 or early 2024. The first section in the construction program is on applicability. The language shown here is new to the permit and it clarifies applicability that wasn't clearly defined in the 2010 permit. This is added clarification and it does not replace language from the 2010 permit. Generally, any activity that disturbs land is subject to the construction program requirements. The minimum BMPs or best management practices for all sites is a notable change from the 2010 permit. In the 2010 permit, we had multiple tables of minimum BMPs based on site size or risk level. In the 2021 permit, the minimum BMPs have been greatly simplified into one table applicable to all construction sites. Table 7 in the permit lists the minimum BMPs, which are similar to the 2010 permit's minimum BMPs for sites less than 1 acre. Note that these are minimum BMPs, and many sites will need additional BMPs to effectively control erosion and sediment. We will go over some examples of these minimum BMPs in the last portion of the training. Table 8 from the 2021 permit includes the minimum BMPs for roadway paving projects. These BMPs are unchanged from the 2010 permit. For construction sites less than 1 acre, the 2021 permit requires an effective combination of the minimum BMPs. There was a change in the inspection frequency for sites less than 1 acre. The 2010 permit required all sites, regardless of size, to be inspected a minimum of once during the wet season. The 2021 permit requires inspections as needed, based on factors that threaten water quality. This could mean increased or decreased inspection frequency, depending on the project characteristics. Listed here are the factors that the permit identifies as threatening to water quality. Some examples include site slopes, proximity to receiving water bodies, and watershed water quality issues. These characteristics are fairly broad and could apply to many sites. This change gives the county flexibility to assess risk on a site-by-site basis, identify inspection frequency needs for all small projects, and document for permit compliance. There were multiple changes in the 2021 permit for sites 1 acre and greater. For plan review and approval, the 2021 permit increased the requirements to add 401 water quality certification and post-construction plans to the list of items that agencies need to verify prior to issuance of grading, building, or any other applicable permits. This means that the county may need to ask for additional documentation when reviewing projects for permit approval. For the construction site inventory requirement, the 2010 permit required that the county track permits and municipal authorizations issued. However, the 2021 permit expands the requirement to specify additional site details that need to be tracked. A few examples include site risk level, construction phase, and WDID. The site inspection requirement for large sites 1 acre or greater is generally the most significant change in the 2021 permit's construction program. As mentioned before, the 2010 permit required all sites to be inspected a minimum of once during the wet season. The 2021 permit requires monthly inspections for all large sites and inspections every 2 weeks for large sites that are a significant threat to water quality. The factors that threaten water quality are the same as those for sites less than 1 acre and are listed here. The inspection frequency can be reduced if the site is found to be in compliance, but inspections must initially be done at the required frequency to establish compliance. Once compliance is established, the inspection frequency can be reduced to once during wet weather and once during dry weather. The required scope of the inspections is also more prescriptive in the 2021 permit. The regional board did add language to this section suggesting that the inspection requirement could be met by the project's QSD, QSP, or CPESC on behalf of the county. However, that language includes the requirement for the county to verify and take responsibility for the inspection findings. As of now, we are unclear if this could reduce inspection effort for the county because the county would need to do an inspection in order to verify inspection findings. This may be a topic that is discussed further as the watershed management programs are developed. Lastly, there are a few elements of the 2010 permit that were removed in the 2021 permit. As mentioned earlier, all of the tables with different minimum BMPs based on site size or risk were replaced with one table for all sites. The local SWIP requirement from the 2010 permit was also removed. This included the requirements for rationale of the BMPs selected and the certification statements for the engineer and landowner. To finish, we will review some examples of the 2021 permit's minimum construction BMPs. The 2021 MS4 permit splits minimum construction BMPs into 5 categories. Site management BMPs are an overall approach to limit pollutant contact with stormwater. Erosion control BMPs aim to prevent or reduce erosion from happening. Erosion control BMPs should be the focus of stormwater designs because it is harder to control sediment once it has been eroded. However, sediment control BMPs are always necessary in case erosion controls fail. Sediment control BMPs trap soil particles after they've been eroded. Non-stormwater management BMPs aim to prevent discharge of materials other than stormwater, and waste management BMPs aim to prevent the discharge of trash and other waste. Site management is a new BMP category in the 2021 permit, and it includes housekeeping. This category essentially combines efforts of all other types of source controls. The goal of housekeeping is to keep the site tidy and well managed, and it is closely related to non-stormwater and waste management BMPs. Erosion control BMPs include scheduling, preservation of existing vegetation, and wind erosion controls. Scheduling is the implementation of a written plan to sequence construction activities and implementation of BMPs with consideration of local rainfall patterns. The goal of this is to minimize exposed soil when rainfall is likely to occur and to implement appropriate BMPs for each phase of construction. Preservation of existing vegetation focuses on minimizing clearing so that established vegetation can continue to provide cover and root stabilization for site soils. Wind erosion control is a new BMP in the 2021 MS4 permit. An example of wind erosion control is using watering for dust control. Note that these are minimum BMPs and many sites will require more robust erosion controls. Sediment control BMPs include perimeter controls and a stabilized construction site entrance. Perimeter controls like silt fence or sandbag barriers filter runoff as it discharges off-site. It is important that perimeter controls are properly installed and maintained. However, it is also important that BMPs are selected based on site conditions. Some perimeter controls aren't always appropriate for a given site. For example, sandbags are too labor-intensive to maintain along perimeter, or silt fence can't be installed on hard surfaces. A stabilized construction site entrance is a defined point of access for the construction site that has been stabilized to reduce tracking of sediment onto off-site roads. All entry to and exit from the construction site should be limited to the stabilized construction entrance for all vehicles, including passenger vehicles. Other unstabilized entries should be blocked to prevent use. Rock for the stabilized construction entrance will need to be replaced or turned when sediment has clogged the void space. Trackout is one of the easiest ways for a site to have an off-site discharge, and it is considered a violation of stormwater requirements. Therefore, it is important that the stabilized entrance is frequently maintained. Non-stormwater management BMPs include water conservation practices and dewatering operations. Water conservation practices avoid using water on site in ways that could cause erosion or off-site discharge of pollutants. Dewatering BMPs aim to manage dewatering operations to prevent erosion and off-site discharge of pollutants. The photo shown here in red is an example of a site where BMPs were implemented, however the BMPs were not appropriate for the site conditions. This discharge would still be considered a violation because the BMPs implemented are not sufficient to remove sediment. This is a reminder that BMP implementation is not a checkbox and that it must be adaptive, site-specific, and appropriate for current conditions. Waste management BMPs include material delivery and storage, stockpile management, spill prevention and control, solid waste management, concrete waste management, and sanitary septic waste management. For material delivery and storage, materials should be protected from rain by using covers and should be elevated on pallets. The stockpile highlighted in red here is placed immediately adjacent to the curb, which is considered an MS4 conveyance. So as soon as it starts to rain, the stockpile will erode into the gutter and the site will have an off-site discharge violation. Stockpiles should be located away from stormwater conveyances, they should be provided perimeter controls, and they should be covered when not in use. For spill prevention and control, a spill kit should be available on site. For solid waste management, containers on site should be covered and should not be leaking. Concrete slurry is not an allowable discharge. So concrete washouts should be inspected for leaks and washout activities should be supervised to ensure that the washout is actually used. Any spilled slurry needs to be cleaned off of soils immediately. For sanitary waste management, facilities like portable toilets should be located away from stormwater conveyances. They should be tied down, provided secondary containment, and be regularly maintained. This concludes our 2022 presentation on the new Regional Municipal Stormwater Permits Construction Program. Please reach out to the County Stormwater Program with any questions. We appreciate your help in protecting the quality of our water resources.